the law of vibration is you say something out of your mouth, just like you do with the law of attraction, but before the law of attraction happens, you're actually changing the frequency that you vibrate at, which only happens from your belief. So you have to actually believe the things that you're saying, or the law of attraction doesn't happen. And so if you don't believe the things that you're saying, but you're saying, oh, I'm gonna make $1 million, oh, I'm gonna do these really cool things, I'm gonna be a high income earner, I'm gonna be one of the top performers here, but you don't believe it, the results won't happen. And so the way to get your results, the way to get your vibration up is to believe the things that you're saying. Success can be 30%. So your ratio for success, you have to redefine it in your mind. And then once you're okay with that new perspective, because an MLB baseball player doesn't get mad at himself for batting 30%. They think it's really good. Yeah. But if you go to school, college, like university, wherever, and you get 30%, it's really bad. So you have to redefine your own perspective of success. The bamboo story is Jack and Jill, this time, they walk up a hill into the woods and to a river. They have to grab buckets of water to be able to walk back to their families, because a couple hundred years ago they eat, bathe, clean, they do everything with it. So they're drinking water, they don't have running water. So this time, instead of, so they go up into the forest, they walk back every single day. It's 2 miles up, 2 miles back. It's a big part of their day every single day. So Jack for 2 years does this. He walks up, grabs a bucket of water, walks all the way back to the village. And then Jill, on the other hand, she walks up, grabs a bucket of water, and being the smart cookie that she grabs one stick of bamboo every single day. So Jill walks all the way back, she lays a stick of bamboo next to where she lives, and then the next day she goes and grabs another one, and then the next day she grabs another one, and another one. And so for 2 straight years, Jill has grabbed a stick of bamboo every single day. And over time, it didn't happen in one day, but over time, she's built a pipe that now is bringing her water from the river, so she doesn't have to walk back up. And so the point of the story is she has running water all the way to her house where she lives, and Jack's left going back to walk 2 miles every single day. And so the point of the story is, what are you doing today to set yourself up tomorrow and down the road? Is it relationships? Is it recurring revenue? Like, who are you nurturing today that's gonna help build your business in the future, right? Because some people, they try to close all day today. In my business, it's recruiting, right? I'm recruiting, so I don't have to sell forever. But like here, it's like, am I nurturing relationships? Am I building, rev share deals? Am I building recurrent businesses on my recurring platform? Because like if I put up 100K or 200K or 500K deal today, like what about tomorrow? Like what about next month? Like do I have to show up and try to find and scrape and battle to get that again? So like in my mind, I would be thinking about recurring. Like that's a beautiful thing, right? Mm-hmm. So thinking long term and not just short term, getting the work done that you need to do for today, but also thinking far enough out to be able to set yourself up in 2 years. Because I don't know about you guys, but like I want to be in a better place in a year and 2 years out. I want to be able to look back every 12 months and be like, I grew, I had progress, and this is what the progress was, and I can identify it rather than just willy-nilly all over the board, right? So that's Jack and Jill's story. What was the third one?
The toaster.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, the
toaster. She's catching up.
The toaster.
Let's go with the toaster one. The toaster is my favorite.
Yeah, so a couple hundred years ago, cavemen, they all liked eating bread. They invented bread, and everybody, it was a huge hit, but cavemen were super savvy, so they wanted to figure out how to make it different. So it was squishy and chewy or whatever, and so they started to try to make toast. But back then, they didn't have a toaster, so what they did was they built fires. And the fires had all these uncontrollable variables. So there's flames blowing up, people are burning their hands, the bread's catching on fire, right? The flame's blowing over there, so they're missing the bread. They were able to do it, but it kind of sucked, right? So a couple hundred years goes by, they get a little bit smarter. Now they have sticks, they have candles, things like that. It's a little bit easier. There's still some uncontrollable variables. The bread catches on fire every once in a while, and they're wasting food. Now, evolution happens, right? Change happens. They grow, they get smarter, they get better. Today, we got toast. Think about it. Like, what happens? We put the bread in, push the button down, and boom. What happens? Toast pops.
Toast comes out.
Right?
Boom.
And so it's so predictable. I know that in 45 seconds to a minute, every single time, no matter what, when I put the bread in, I push the button down, I'm gonna get toast, right? It happens every single time. Why are we able to be so predictable in things like that, but we can't be predictable in our business? So for me, I gotta know my numbers. How can I make my business so predictable that when I make this many calls, and I say this stuff, and I present this many times, I'm gonna get this result? Rather than me having to guess, and yeah, like today's gonna be different than tomorrow, but there's an average that comes through, right? So if I know that when I present, like when I talk to Selena sometimes, she's like, oh, I'm not closing a lot, I don't have a lot of revenue, I'm working really hard. I'm like, okay, how many times did you present something that's worth more than $50,000? She'll be like, I haven't. I'm like, okay, like there's an issue, right? So when we present over $50,000, there's a ratio of how many people say yes, right? So we just know now, hey, if we just present enough times that you're gonna get some yeses, right? So the idea is build your business to be predictable. If you track your numbers, if it's dials on a certain, if it's just leads in your CRM or whatever the case is, like if you're just having conversations and communicating with people, you eventually go, all right, I can recognize some patterns in my business. When I make this many phone calls, I see that I get this many answers. When I get this many answers, I can get this many presentations. When I get this many presentations, this many people say yes, my average deal size is this. And then you can go, okay, well if I just do that every single day, then that's my toaster, that's my money. And I just have to scale that along with maybe some different big deals and some other things that you can do, but you want your business to be predictable. And the best thing about like everybody's business in here is like you're independent. You know what I mean? Like you can offer different things, track different things, like make your own toaster. So those are my 3 big stories that I love to teach on because they're yeah. So
this is what we're gonna be talking about today.
I met a guy yesterday. I had a phone call with someone. He's been in the financial service industry for 40 years. He's a big multi-millionaire. He's mentored the person who's the second highest earner in the entire financial services industry ever.
Wow.
In the business. So the he's done a lot, right? And so I had an hour-long conversation with him, and he was telling me that there's no such thing as coincidences. There's no such thing as accidents in your life. And so he was explaining to me as he asked me my story and where I came from and the mentors that I've had in my life and how he said that every single person that you've had in your life has passed you off to another person to mentor you, to teach you, to grow you, but it's not by accident. He said you've always been searching for that. And so we got talking about kind of like my journey and my story, and he was telling me that people want to use the law of attraction, right? So people say, oh, like law of attraction, man, like I'm gonna make $1 million this year. Yeah, and so people say these things, they say these things out loud, but what they don't realize is the law of attraction comes after the law of vibration. And so what he taught me was the law of vibration is you say something out of your mouth, just like you do in the law of attraction, but before the law of attraction happens, you're actually changing the frequency that you vibrate at, which only happens from your belief. So you have to actually believe the things that you're saying, or the law of attraction doesn't happen. And so if you don't believe the things that you're saying, but you're saying, oh, I'm gonna make $1 million, oh, I'm gonna do these really cool things, I'm gonna be a high income earner, I'm gonna be one of the top performers here, but you don't believe it, the results won't happen. And so the way to get your results, the way to get your vibration up is to believe the things that you're saying. He told me this story. I was telling him about, if you guys know me, I love Napoleon Hill stuff, right? And so I'm pretty sure all of us probably have read something of his, heard something of his, or whatever. I mentioned Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill, and so he told me this story. He said Andrew Carnegie came here with 2 pennies in his pocket to the United States from Scotland. And he said when he got here, he became the richest person, I think he said in the world. It was either the world or the United States by the time he was 35 years old. And so what he realized was that it couldn't be taught. Like, it's not something that anybody could replicate because it was so difficult, so many challenges, and all these things going on. So Napoleon Hill was an author at the time, and Napoleon Hill was broke. So Andrew Carnegie calls Napoleon Hill and says, hey, I have an opportunity for you. I want you to come to my mansion, and I'm going to give you the opportunity, right? And so Napoleon Hill has to figure out his way to get to Andrew Carnegie's place. He shows up to the mansion, and he says, decisive people make decisions fast. Which says successful people make decisions fast, so decisive. So he pulls out a stopwatch, he puts it on his leg, and he sits there across from Napoleon Hill and he says, hey, for the next 20 years, I want you to go and do this project because if I tell this story, if I share these things that I've had, it's going to be arrogant, it's going to be cocky, it's going to be this is what I did and you can't do it. It's something that can't be taught. To become wealthy, you can't just teach someone, it has to be caught, right? So he said, Napoleon Hill, will you study the 500 successful people that I know for the next 20 years if I told you you weren't going to make a penny from them? And he said yes, right? And so Napoleon Hill studied Andrew Carnegie and Thomas Edison and all these successful people that have done very, very incredible things, right? And so the point is that Napoleon Hill, just like in that book, he writes about Think and Grow Rich. He writes about how you have to visualize, how you have to change your state, how you have to view yourself as already having the end result. The end result is the magic piece of it. You have to feel it. Because when you feel it, your vibration changes. When you feel it, you're able to attract those things into your life. But if you don't feel it, if you're saying things, if you're speaking things out, if you're writing things out, if you're saying that you want this amazing life, if you're saying that you want to get in shape, if you're saying that you want your finances to be different, whatever it is, but you don't believe it deep down, if you don't have that end result, that result of you actually having it, it's not just you visualizing it that magically, accidentally, somehow, we don't really know why it happens, makes it happen. It's the vibration that you carry when you believe it. Because then you're able to attract the things into your life, the law of attraction takes place, right? So instead of just saying things and accidentally like believing that things just kind of work out, like there are no coincidences. This is what this guy was telling me. He's saying there are no coincidences. He said the hockey coach that you had, that you played for 4 years, introduced you, he taught you and grew you, and he helped you grow, and he was that mentor that you needed in your life. And then you went to college, and then you searched for a new mentor, which is literally what I did. I Googled how do people get rich, how do people make money. I found Brad Lee. Brad Lee partnered with Andy. I met Andy. I lived with Andy for 4 months or whatever it was. Andy's introduced me now to so many people, but in financial services, I met these people. I met the second most wealthy person in financial services history. I met his mentor. I've met people that are making 7 figures a month in the business now. And now all these people have the opportunity to teach me. And this guy was telling me on the phone that none of this is by accident. It's because you believed the whole time that this was all going to happen. He said you've been carrying this vibration. And at 25 years old, you've been able to do all these things, make all this money, be this example. But what he was telling me was I was able to do it because I believed it before it happened. So the vibration that I was carrying led me to all these different things. And I didn't know that I was doing it while I was doing it. But I found my way into all these doors and rooms and opportunities and conversations. And this guy's 72 years old on the phone with me. He's been in the business for 40 years. And like, I'm getting advice and wisdom from him. And he doesn't just talk to anybody, you know what I mean? It's like, you got to kind of work your way into that. I'm giving you guys the example of it in real life. But for a lot of us in here, I think that like, we want to change something. We want to do something special. And the reason I told the Napoleon Hill story is because if you guys haven't read the book, you really should. Because it's like stuff that I practice, and I didn't understand it. I did it, and I didn't get it, but now I get it. You know what I mean? And so I've seen it change my life like a ton. And yeah, I think that it would just be super beneficial for everybody. What's up?
I've sent a series of CDs in the group chat like twice. I've sent it to a few of you guys individually, and it's literally everything you guys are talking about.
That's cool.
Like,
and he references Napoleon.
he references that exact story. Like, it's literally super fire. So,
That's so cool.
if you guys want it.
That's why the proximity is so important, because it's like now that he's taking in all that information, now I get to benefit from it.
Right.
So that's why Andy yesterday, or the twins, were talking about who's your proximity and who are you hanging out with. Are you very clear with who you're hanging out with? Because he's taking and studying in all that information, I get the benefit from it. And then it makes me level up, and then I'm learning new information, because now I'm fearful that like, oh, Tyler's not going to look up to me if I don't try to study too and teach him new things. But like, if I was hanging around with a guy that was just drinking and playing video games and people on the side and going back to my old life, that's why I don't like to go back home anymore. I'm the same reason as Andy, is time is so slow when I go back home. I'm like, oh my gosh, 3 days feels like 2 weeks. I'm like, get me out of here, I gotta go home and dial. I'm like, it's just because everybody's like, okay, let's get up at 11 o'clock in the morning and then go here. And I'm just like, dude, I'm like, I gotta go. Like, this isn't working for me. And that's why, like, I'm like, Mom, if you want to come hang out, like, you should come out here to Arizona. Okay, like, I don't want to go back home because I want to be on my watch and on my dime. So what Tyler, go ahead.
So last thing I wanted to mention was there's a proverb that he mentioned to me. He's very
This is how I know I love this guy, because he talked about God.
Amen. He's
talked about
incredibly in touch with his faith. And we had this hour-long, it was like emotional, it was powerful, like it was a crazy hour yesterday that I had with this guy. But what he said to me, he said there's a proverb in the Bible, and he said he backs everything up by Scripture. Everything that he teaches, everything that he does, everything that he says, he backs it up with Scripture. This guy, he said to me, there's a proverb in the Bible that says, what Adam, what Tyler, what Selena, what anybody believes in their heart to be true, it is. Right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And so I think that, like, he was explaining to me how that ties directly into, if you don't believe the things that you're saying, if you don't believe the goals that you're trying to achieve, if you don't believe the things that you want to happen in your life, they're not going to happen. Because you're not vibrating at that frequency to be able to attract the things into your life that you're actually trying to get, right? So I'm going to give you an example, right? You know, like Andy and Brad, they love to talk about how people say they want things, but they don't actually want the thing because it takes a lot of work to be able to get it.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people say, I want to make $1 million. But it's like, you're not saying it with belief, you're just kind of saying it would be cool to have money.
Right.
Right? And so they're not vibrating at a high enough frequency to be able to do it. if you actually believed that you wanted to make $1 million this year, that you could make $1 million this year, well, what Tyler believes in his heart to be true is, right? So it is true. So I'm going to vibrate at that frequency because I actually believe it. And then now I'm going to pull in, because of the law of attraction, I'm going to pull in all these things. I'm going to start to see things. My reticular activating system is going to start to identify the things that are going to help me get there.
And if this is the video that helped you out today, I'm gonna place a couple other of my videos right here for you guys to watch. It's exactly what you're gonna need to see following today's video, guys. See you in the next one.